Mr. Anderson, thank you very much for agreeing to sit down and discuss this with me. And I just really am a private citizen. I'm trying to get to know all the candidates a little better for my own fact-finding and decision-making purposes. And I thought this might be a unique opportunity to have a long-form conversation, to get out in front of other people who may be wrestling with the same questions that I am. But let's, kind of start from the beginning. Where are you from originally?
Well, I was born in north of Dothan, Alabama, at an Army Air Force hospital,
Rucker?
Napier Field. It's so I grew up in the first 6 years of my life in Bainbridge, Georgia, and we moved to Defuniak between my 6th and 7th year of age. So I've lived in Walden County almost 65 years.
Yes, sir.
I went to the part of the first and all the second and the third grade in Defuniak, and then moved to Freeport, where I continued going to school. I graduated from Freeport. I was in the third graduating class at Freeport High School. Went to college, was the guy that said he had never come back to Walden County, and I lasted 8 months after I got out of college.
What did you study in college?
Political science. Never had any intention of using it, but except I was going to become a teacher and a basketball coach. But things changed, and so I lived in Tallahassee a while and then moved to California with my brother for a while, and just decided I liked living in Walden County. Moved back. I worked 30 years with the Postal Service. Started my own business in early 2000s, and in '09 I sold out my share of the business to my partner, and I'd had some health issues, so
What type of business was that?
insulation and garage doors. And my son worked for us, my oldest son, and when I left, he left and started his own company, and has been very successful with that. I have 3 kids. I was a single dad that had custody of the kids. So when they moved down to the south end, not only were they my children, they were my best friends. So in 2012, I moved down to the south end. Had no intentions of ever getting in politics. Have never had a real desire, but saw some things going on that I didn't think were right, and with the encouragement of some friends, decided to run, and won quite handily. To be frank with you, I was very humbled by the support I got.
This was in 2000?
No, this was in 2016.
In 2016?
Yeah, and I've been the District 5 Commissioner for the last 4 years.
Yes, sir.
And
that's your first entree into
first.
public office?
It is. When I was living in Defuniak, I had some people contact me about running for city council, but the kids were still at home, and and I was working at the post office. I just didn't have time, really didn't have a desire to do it at that time. But I've enjoyed the 4 years I've been in. We've accomplished a lot and made a lot of friends.
In 2016, when you were observing the landscape and decided that you needed to run, there were some things that you wanted to change or be a part of. What were those key items?
Well, the one of the things where we weren't moving fast enough on infrastructure, and we weren't. When I won, there were 30 something lawsuits against the county for not following the rules, and I'm an avid rule follower. Sometimes I hate that about myself, but if I break a rule, I don't sleep at night. So I just felt like we needed to follow the rules that the state guidelines have forced us to follow. And we've lost a lot of lawsuits in the past because we weren't following those rules.
And did you see a pattern in the type of lawsuits or the type of rules that we weren't following? Could you summarize that sort of?
Well, there was issues. What people don't understand is the state has put guidelines, and they're actually state statutes, and they're not guidelines, that if a project follows the comp plan and the code, we have no other option but to vote for it. That's the state guidelines. That's a state statute. And then I think it was last year they reinforced that to make it even tougher. So there, sometimes you have to vote for projects you don't like, but they do follow the comp plan and the code. And So, you know, we weren't doing that, and it was costing the county a lot of money in lawsuits.
Does the state dictate our comp plan?
They have a lot of say-so in it, a lot of say-so. Everything, anytime we change it, they have to approve it. The comp plan was originally their comp plan, because back in the 90s, Walden County didn't have a comp plan, and the state gave Walden County an opportunity to come up with a comp plan, and they chose not to, and so the state gave us a comp plan.
So we could replace the comp plan, but
We
it'd
can
have to-
change it some. It's a process. I mean, it's a, 2 or 3 year deal to get it done, and we have done some of that. But it's, the state is trying to do away with home rule, and I'm totally against that. I think counties should, we're not the same county Miami-Dade is. And Miami-Dade should make their rules and we should make ours. But there's a lot of things that we've changed to help the people of Walden County. A lot of people don't like them, but there was a rule that if you had 15 acres, you could only build one house on it. So if your children wanted to build a house on 5 acres, they couldn't do it. In agriculture, it was one home every 10 acres. So those are things that, common sense dictates that you should be allowed to have your children build on your property. But those are some of the things that's changed over the past.
Well, speaking about infrastructure, how do you feel infrastructure has come along in the last 4 years?
Well, it's coming along. It's a long process, especially when we're doing stormwater. Everything we do we have to have a permit for. We have to work with the Corps. We have to work with DEP, but it's coming. Things that have really made the difference is the light at 395. Although it was approved before, it had sat on desk and not been installed. And that's one of the first things I did. I called our traffic engineer and said, "What's going on with 395? It's already been approved." And he said it had been held up by some commissioner. So I went to the board and asked them, let's get started on this. And it's made a tremendous difference.
I remember when that light was being installed, all the hubbub that was coming around about why we were doing it and we shouldn't be doing it. And
Yeah.
I'm not smart enough to know whether or not it was going to be a good idea or not, but I think it's clear cut that it has improved the traffic flow at that intersection and along 38 East and West.
It has, and to be honest with you, Bo, I had no idea it would be as effective as it is. I knew we had to do something because what we had was definitely not working. And our traffic engineer, who is a really good guy and a really smart guy, he assured me that we would be surprised with how much it would help, and it has been a blessing for that intersection.
Are there any other projects like that are either
Yeah.
in the pipeline or?
Well, there's things we're you have to do a study before you can even start on a project. So we're in the process of studying some other intersections to see if it's beneficial, and we think they will be. But you don't just want to go put in a traffic light if it's not going to be beneficial. So we're in the process of doing something. One of the things that in my first couple of months of office, I joined with some private citizens about building a tunnel in Inlet Beach where 30A connects to 98. We have a very small pad in the middle of that road for people to stop. And it's very dangerous, and sometimes you can't govern making somebody be a good parent, but sometimes people come down, they go to Rosemary, they go out and have a good time, and their kids the next morning are saying, "Hey, let's go to the donut hole," and they'll give them a $100 bill and say, "Go ahead and cross 98." Well, I went down there one day and there was a 12-year-old, looked like an 8-year-old, and a 5-year-old in the middle of that intersection on 98 on bicycles. And it just scared the heck out of me. So I went to George Gaynor, Senator Gaynor, and talked to him about getting funding from the state. And the public sector has put in money and the county has put in money. And we've been moved up in the top 5, and they will start that project this next year, for this next year's budget. It could actually start this year in December. But it's going to be an underground tunnel for pedestrians, and it's going to be a really good thing.
Yeah, yeah. That's
And as far as I know, that's one of the few times Walden County has done it with state and private and public. I mean, the public and the county's funds. So
Are there any other infrastructure subcategories, roads, traffic flow?
yeah, there's always, we're always working to improve that. We're working on a big stormwater project in Seagrove, and we want to do some things there. You know, maybe widen the road. We've got a mobility study we're doing, and they're trying to come up with a lane just for golf carts or autonomous vehicles. And but until we get the stormwater in, we can't do it. So that's what we're working on right now in that area. There's always stormwater projects. That's what the TIF money's for. It's for infrastructure for South Walden. So we get over $4 million a year for South Walden, and it's used strictly for infrastructure in South Walden. And just because you don't see a project going on doesn't mean it's not going on.
Sure, a lot of work behind the scenes.
Yeah,
So parking obviously is a hot
big
topic
issue.
in
Big
South
issue.
Walton.
It is, and one of the things you run into when you try to create parking, everybody wants parking, but they don't want parking next to them. So, I mean, it's parking doesn't create traffic; it stills traffic. You know, it gives people an opportunity to get off the road, but it's hard to get areas to agree that to build a parking area in their neighborhood.
Sure. Is there a shortage of places where you could do that, subject to the surrounding residents approving it? It seems to me like there's not a lot of places that you could put parking.
Well, surprisingly, there's more than you think. The problem you have is when people find out the county's interested in your project, the price goes up.
Right. And that's having to do with the sunshine laws, correct?
Well, the thing is, it's not the sunshine law, but you have to have 4 votes to spend more than the appraised value on the commission. It can't be a 3-2 vote.
Right.
So it's hard to get a 4-1 vote sometimes, and especially when you have people coming into the meeting and say, I don't want parking there, I don't want parking there.
I see.
So as long as it's the appraised value, we can buy spots.
I
So
see.
and that's what we're looking at spots right now. We've got some spots we've bought, and we're waiting to get permits to build parking there.
Will you build parking structures or just flat?
I'm not a big fan of parking structures. I think we can do it with flat spaces. I'm not saying we won't ever do it, but I had a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth. We were talking to a company about doing that, and they just kind of left a bad taste in my mouth about it.
I think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
But you know, I guess on the other side of that equation is adding parking spots or
Yeah.
removing vehicles.
Well, there's a plan to increase designated parking, you know, like we have in Grayton.
Right.
And there's a plan to do that throughout the county.
But what about the other side of trying to reduce the number of vehicles on the road?
Well, we've started a pilot program in Grayton. I don't know if you know about
I've
it.
used it.
And-
It worked really well.
So that's one of the reasons we started. We've got a big piece of property in Dune Allen, right behind Guff Place, and we're waiting to get the numbers on this. We're going to do this through the end of September, and
I think that's a great idea to
Yeah.
have hubs where you can
yeah, and
fix
people,
to
you know, the first few days you get people griping about it, but then they start doing it, and you know, everybody loves it. So it seems to be working really well. The businesses down there like it. The people like it that are going to the beach, because they can go down and drop their stuff off, drop the kids and the mom off, and the dad drives back, gets in the golf cart and comes down here, and then when they come up, he takes the cart and goes.
It worked really well.
It's working really well.
The location there, I understand, is under consideration for a small motel. where-
No, not there.
That's not where the Grayton
No,
Motor
no,
Court
no,
or whatever. Where
can't-
where is that going?
That's on Arbor Lane, but again, it's something that we're gonna vote on, so I can't
Oh,
discuss that.
10-4, 10-4. The environment is a big concern for people, and I think it's kind of obvious we want to take care of the environment. Do you feel like we're doing that? Do you feel like the environment is?
I think we're working on it. You're never completely caught up, and you're never done. It's always a continuous thing. We're working with the Corps of Engineers on the bay. We're waiting for a study from them. We've got money set aside to remove 650 septic tanks off the bay.
Is there an estimate of how many septic tanks surround the bay?
I'm not sure what it is. I don't have it on the tip of my tongue, but that's a good part of them. The problem we're having there is right now Freeport doesn't have the capacity to accept them, but they're working on that problem too. But we've set aside restore money for that. So as soon as they can accept the sewage, we will start working on that. But that's a big thing. I mean, there was a place that wasn't right on the bay, but it was south of Freeport that basically had raw sewage in the street, and we worked with the city of Freeport to clean them up and get them off septic tanks. So, and I think there was a total of 50, and they weren't right on the bay, but their
Close
stormwater was going to the bay. So,
Well, I'm just looking here at your statement on the candidate's website, and one of your first bullet points is bring better paying jobs and new industries to the
Yeah.
county. Let's talk about that for a second.
well, the first thing we've done, there's two things we have to do. We have to get high-speed internet throughout the county. Nobody's going to come if they don't have high-speed internet. So we've signed a contract with a company out of San Jose, California. It's a new technology, and they have guaranteed us that they will have 100% broadband throughout the county. And we feel like the business area will be along 331. And right now, there's not water and sewage along 331, so no business is going to come in without sewage.
Have you talked to interested industry leaders that would be?
We have. There's some that the autonomous vehicle people were very interested in looking into coming, but what they need is high-speed internet.
Right.
And that's an industry of the future, and it would be nice to be on the front end of that. All those jobs would be high-paying jobs. But until we get high-speed internet, and we should have that within 3 years, and Freeport and Defuniak can take care of the sewage along 331, then it's going to be a battle to get industry in. You don't want smokestack industries in
Right.
there. And there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of industries that are looking at Walden County. I mean, why wouldn't you? It's paradise. If you like the beach, we have that. If you like farming, we have that. If you like small towns, we have that. We have great schools. So there's some limitations we have that we're working on fixing.
And I'm sure the available labor pool is.
It'll have to be trained, but that's a work in progress too. The schools are recognizing that. So I'm working with some people about getting Florida State to have a campus over here. So, but COVID has pushed everything back. So, but there's things that we're working on that should have, quite frankly, should have been worked on 10 years ago, 20 years ago. But nobody had any idea it was going to blow up like this.
Right.
And we are behind. So, we have to battle to catch up on infrastructure. And my opponents are just going to say, well, stop development. Well, you can't. You can't stop development. People have a right to build on their property. That's a constitutional right,
Right.
So,
How do you feel in terms of development and the development order process and applying for variances? I mean, do you think the variances are given out according to the code, or do you think that?
I'm not going to really discuss that because I'm not going to belittle the people on those boards because they're giving their time of that. Uh, Sometimes I would say they're probably warranted, sometimes they're probably not. And it's, the planning department and the planning commission hold their feet to the fire pretty good. I don't think that, I don't think all variances are bad, but I do think some of them are.
You know, I mean, some people would probably like to shut down development altogether and just
Absolutely.
leave it the way it is. And, you know, there's some people who don't care and want to astroturf everything they can, and there's a happy medium.
Yeah, there is. The thing about it is, though, you're either growing or dying, and we've got 1,000 people a day moving to the state of Florida, whether we want them here or not, and they have to have a place to live. The state wants the growth. They're encouraging the growth. They're making it almost impossible for counties to deny the growth. We need to have smart development. We need to hold people's feet to the fire to make sure they're following the comp plan and the code.
Tourism obviously is the main economic generator in the area, and I imagine your point about bringing better paying jobs and new industry is to diversify
Absolutely.
tourism.
We're a hurricane away from being broke. So, if we have better paying jobs and we have more industry here that's not dependent on tourism, then that's going to help us recover from a bad economy and a bad hurricane or anything like that. We've got to diversify our economy. Tourism is probably always going to be our top economic boom.
Right.
But we do have to have fallback positions. We do have to have other economic development. And we're working with the EDA to accomplish that.
Have you ever seen the development in Foley, Alabama, the OWA Park? It's the multi-sport complex with it's got some roller coasters. And,
No, I haven't seen that. I've been to Foley, but I haven't seen that.
I see.
Next time I'm over there, I'll look at it.
It's an interesting design. I thought maybe Freeport would look at something like that.
Yeah.
You know, it feels like Walton County has a reputation, if only by buzz and on social media and people just talking to one another, for corruption. The Good Old Boy Network is alive and well in Walton County, according to some. Do you believe that there is corruption?
I believe it has been in the past. I do. In fact, I'm pretty sure of it.
Right.
And I'm talking 20, 30 years ago. But no, it's not now. Nobody's ever offered me a dime, nor would I take it if they did. If I thought one time somebody was going to, and I called the sheriff and said, if he makes an appointment, I want you to bug me. But I've never had anybody offer anything at all. It's the easiest thing to say about a politician is he's crooked.
Right.
And the bad thing is you don't have to prove it. All you have to do is say it. I'm the incumbent, so my distractors are saying that, and there's some that just don't care if they lie or not.
There's another candidate who's taken campaign contributions from a family in Davie, Florida. Have they donated to your campaign?
They have.
Yeah.
They have. And to be honest with you, Charlie Foreman's a really good friend of mine. I've known Charlie for a while. He's never asked me to do anything. He owns probably the largest tract of land in South Walden, and he owns land all over Walden County, and he has for years. It's in a family trust. He's offered to help us with free of charge with our customary use if we don't, whatever we need there. That's not a bribe. That's not anything he's asked me to do. He just said, if something happens, you need my help, I'm available. Charlie's a good friend of mine, but it takes money to run a campaign, and you have to raise money. I've taken money from developers. I've taken money from people who oppose developers. I don't look at an issue of who gives me money or who doesn't give me money. If it follows the comp plan and the code, I'm going to vote for it.
Right.
If it doesn't, I don't care if you've given me money. I'm not going to vote for it. I listen to what our staff says. I meet with every department head before the day before the board meeting, and we just go over what's on the board. I meet with planning, and they tell me the things that are good or bad. They don't approve every project that comes up there, but they bring it to us. But they'll say it's without the planning department's approval, and I don't vote for those issues.
So the Foreman family out of Davie, Florida, they own property here, and
They own the largest tract of property in South Walton.
so they have an interest here in South
They have
Walton.
an interest here, and they have property throughout Walton County.
You know, I feel like maybe the locals sometimes feel like they've been forgotten a little bit. Some of the, TDC money can't be spent on anything that's just for locals. I know that I moved here 4 years ago with my two kids, my wife and two kids. I know a lot of people are moving to the area for schools and family purposes. And, there's not a lot of services for, those sort of individuals. Do you see any plan to provide facilities or?
Well, when I first got in office, I went by and looked at. I've always been a big supporter of youth sports, and I went by Helen McCall, and I thought, this is terrible. It wasn't that it was a horrible park, but compared to Freeport and to Feniac, it was not even close. And so one of my goals was to spend money out of the rec plat fees for Helen McCall. Well, we've got a new park, a new sports complex, and I spent money for that. Between those two, I have spent over $1.5 million of rec plat fees to youth sports. I've put money in Grady Brown Park, which is a park for locals. One of the most beautiful parks I've seen, and it was all done with county labor. I don't know if you've been over there.
Not yet.
Take your children over there; they'll love it. It's on the north side of the bay, and it's
Oh, sure.
it's one of the best things we've done as a county. So we're spending money for locals. We built, and I gave quite a bit of money to the skate park that's at Helen McCall. And believe me, I'm not a skater, never have been. Don't see why people do it, but it's being used quite a lot. So I'm very proud that people are using that. And I've been told, I went by there the other day and talked to some people, and one of the guys was from Pensacola, and he said, we don't have anything close to this. And he said, they don't have anything close to this in Fort Walton. So it's turned out really well, and it's being used by locals.
Can you discuss anything about the golf gardens purchase, and just in general about what's
Well,
coming
I
there?
was in favor of the golf garden purchase till I found out that we couldn't use TDC money for it, and
Right.
the county didn't have, that much money to spend.
So is that torpedoed?
No, we bought 10 acres in the back, but yeah, the front is torpedoed. And had we been able to use TDC funds, I would have voted to approve it.
Is there any practical path to change that? Because it seems, my opinion is that tourism here is akin to a natural resource. And I don't
Well,
understand why TDC dollars can't, in some portion, be used to benefit the people who are impacted by the tourism.
And I agree with you 100%. Unfortunately, the state disagrees. And it would have to be changed by the state. Every time I talk to a representative or a senator, I mention that. But
Any traction? They
No,
agree, don't
no,
agree, it's
no.
too hard to do?
they just, what they'd like to do is take it themselves. But you're right, it would be nice if we could use it for infrastructure of any kind. But we can't. We can't even use it for a stop sign. Which is ridiculous to me. There's a little bit that the sheriff can do with it, and rumor has it they're going to open it up a little more. But it's one of those things, I'll believe it when I see it.
10-4. The height restrictions, building height restrictions. Can you imagine a scenario where Tony Anderson is voting to change the building height restrictions?
No. The one, and I've said this on numerous occasions. Two things the county did right years ago. One, they went out after upper income people. Look at what Okaloosa County and look at Bay County. They didn't do that. We have the people with money coming to Walden County. The county and the TDC, they're the ones that did that. the reason that's good is people with money spend more money. So we get more tax dollars off of it. We get more gas tax, we get more sales tax. Everything works better for us because they're here. The second thing they did that was great was the height limit. That was one of the best things the county ever did, and I will not ever, while I'm in office, vote to lower that height limit. That would take the beauty off of 30A. There's some down in along Old 98, and there's some in these resort areas, which they're different than us. You know, they're under a different plan than the regular comp plan, so they have a little more leeway. But we're not. I've never heard any commissioner say we need to do away with the height limit, including myself.
You know, just thinking about Seagrove.
Oh, yeah.
Particularly in front of Whiskey Bravo, they meet the height limit, but those are some big houses
They
being
are some
built
big
right there.
houses.
And I think that if you had, and it could be, that sort of house built along the coastline down to Alice Beach would definitely change the feel of 30A. Of course, it's
Wouldn't change the feel of 30A down there.
no, it wouldn't change the feel of 30A down there. But from Water Sound Parkway all the way to the hub, let's say Water Sound, you still have older condominiums, older houses on the beach. Maybe Pelican, the neighborhood there would be your stopping point. That area, could be preserved if those properties were, I don't know, further restricted from building these type of, mega mansion homes, or if the county bought those properties and assimilated that stretch of coastline.
Yeah, and I would really love for the county and the TDC to buy as much property on the beach as we could. As far as stopping people from building again, it's in the comp plan that they can. So it would be hard to just restrict a certain area.
Right.
If you did it, you'd have to do the whole thing, and then again, we would have to go through the state to be approved. So, and right now, the building lobby has the state's ear. I mean, they've made some changes that have surprised me. They're the ones that, tightened up what we could do in the last legislature. So.
But acquiring properties is still
Yeah.
a possibility for the county,
and
or always a possibility?
Always a possibility. We try to buy as much beach property as we can. We keep a reserved account in the TDC and in the county specifically for hurricanes. I mean, if we don't have that money put back, then we can never build the walkovers again. So we have a certain amount that we don't like to touch. Not saying we won't, but we don't like to touch. But we need to buy as much beachfront property as we can. There's no doubt about that.
Is there anything you'd like to bring up in our
No,
conversation?
just that I've tried to do a good job. I've tried to represent all the people of Walden County. I'm sure I've made some people mad, and I'm sure I've pleased some people. There's been some this coronavirus has really affected our budget.
Yeah, tell me about the response to the coronavirus, and I'll play devil's advocate a little bit here. Do you think Walton County has done a good job with the response?
I do. I think there's some, there's a big push by some people to force masks on people. That's going to be hard to get through. I think a business has a right to say, hey, Bo, you can't come in here without a mask, just like you can't come in here without shoes. But it's when the government's getting in there, it gets a little bit tricky. Now, some counties have done it, and it's held up in in circuit court. I'm not sure it's going to hold up on appeal. I think it's easier when businesses do it and enforce it.
Your personal opinion, I'm making an assumption, is that you don't think a mask mandate would be a good idea, aside from whether or not you want the government telling you what to do.
I'm kind of torn on it. I'm looking at numbers. There may come a day we have to do it. Here's what bothers me about coronavirus, and I've said this in meetings on numerous occasions. First of all, we have, I think today's number is 1,346 cases. Okay, how many of those have been cured? How many of those don't have the coronavirus now? It's not 1,000. It's probably not even five. I mean, it's not. We don't have 1,000 that have it right now. We probably don't have 500. Even may not even have 100 that have it right now. But we may have 300 or 500. I don't know. But we don't have those numbers. So, yes, people are still catching it, but they're still getting cured. Are there some deaths? Absolutely. Most of our deaths came from a nursing home. Those people were on hospice before they knew they had corona. So, when you go on hospice, that's the death warrant. They're just waiting for you to die. So did they die of coronas? Or did they die because they were 87 years old or something, I asked the question to our health director. I said, if I went to the doctor today and she told me I had corona, and I was driving home and I was T-boned by a semi and crushed to death, would I count as a coronavirus? And she said, yes. So, really, how many people have died specifically because of corona? So the numbers are skewed, and that's why everybody is
Not on the same page.
Not on the same page,
Right.
And I think nobody wants to take rights away from people, but there may come a time we have to.
So you're watching the situation, and your
I'm watching
decision
it every
is
day.
fluid.
It has to be fluid. I mean, it was one of the hardest decisions I've ever made was closing the beaches. Didn't sleep for a week, worrying about it, but felt like it was a decision we had to make. Seemed to work. We couldn't. I got a lot of friends that said, you need to open the beaches back up. You need to open short-term rentals. Well, first of all, the county doesn't have anything to do with short-term rentals. The state.
That torpedoes a lot of my questions
Yeah,
right there.
yeah.
Because
The state runs
it's
that.
state
The governor
regulated.
closed it. He was the only one that could open it up. We have no say-so in short-term rentals, which is absurd, but that's the way it is.
Yeah, home rule, right?
Yeah,
And that's been eroded away over the years.
it has, and it's still being eroded away. So
Is there a pushback to that? Is there some?
there's the county governments are pushing it back, but really and truly the people don't know about it, and that's what I've been screaming the whole 4 years I'm in office. Contact your senator and representative. Contact the governor's office. Let them know that you're tired of this home rule pushback, because it's going to eventually turn out that we have no control. That everything we do is by state rules and not county rules. And I'm a hardcore conservative Republican, and I think the less government you have, the better it is. But there's issues that Miami-Dade doesn't face that we do, and there's issues they do that we don't. So you can't have one set of rules fits every county in the state.
One last little topic here: code enforcement. It seems to be that we have the code in place to sort of affect some of the changes that we want to see out here, but code's not being enforced. Do you agree with that? That we have a code enforcement problem?
I believe there's some people that don't follow the code, but I think our code enforcement people are doing a good job. Most of what we have to do, though, is generated because somebody complains. Now, if they're riding by and see something, yeah, they stop. But it's hard to see everything. But I think we've changed the way we're doing code. Code's under its own department now, and we have a new director, and he's doing a good job. He's a former police officer, worked for the state as a police officer in alcohol, tobacco, and firearms or something, and so he's got the background for it, and he's working really hard. And again, it's hard to see everything, and the process is a little bit screwy. It's if you file a code complaint on me, they come out, and it is a code complaint. They give me so many days to straighten it out. So if you file that complaint, say I'm leaving garbage in my yard, I have X amount of days to do that. So there is a lapse time that we need we need to look at. But,
Do we have enough code enforcement officers?
well, we're doubling up with the beach code officers now. We're gonna see how that works out this year. Now, they're working the beach now, but in the off-season, some of them will be working on the building end of it, so, and regular code, so we're seeing how that works. We don't want to do anything until our new director's been there and he can come back with recommendations.
Well, Mr. Anderson, I appreciate your time, and thank you very much for sitting down and having this conversation with me.
Thank you.